As you can see, we have with us Sister Waddy all the way from the state of Florida. And let me just stop sharing, and maybe Anu sister can highlight if she's there. Yeah, okay. Thank you for joining. And yeah, and as usual, I'll just take a few more minutes and introduce you in the form of a poem, and then all the stage is yours. So, I think the people from Miami know her well, but I think this audience also knows her well because she has had a few talks with us in the past. And she is basically into Raj Yoga since more than 45 years. So, it's almost a golden jubilee she'll be celebrating soon. And she's one of those first Western students who came into knowledge in London. And Dadi Janki is one of those who's inspired her a lot. And I must say that Sister Waddy has been an active member of what is called EVO, IVOH. I'll just tell you the short full form. It's Images and Voices of Hope. And now it's called as the Peace Studio. So it's a uh, sort of conversations going on that studio, Peace Studio, which is there in the south of Florida. And she has been a convener of that since almost 25 years now. And I forgot to mention that she is the Brahma Kumari's coordinator for the entire state of Florida, and also very important, the board member of Brahma Kumaris in USA. Okay, so a few lines on her as always. She is one of Baba's favorites, who is very, very select, and of the beads of rosary, she is indeed the precious elect. All these attributes are because of her faithful intellect, which we have been speaking so far all the time now, and she conveys all this through her spiritual dialect. So, a few lines on today's value of being carefree. So, from her sharings today, let's all learn to be carefree but not careless, because time indeed is very, very less. Situations come and make us feel the pressure. But let's wear the angelic light and mighty dress and bloom fully like the tiny flowers of the watercress. So, with this, I would now hand it over to Sister Waddy, and immensely thankful to you for being with us again. Thanks.
Thank you so much, brother. Do you share your poetry with your patients? That's
Not really.
one little green that's very important to me is watercress. I make sure I have it every day because of the K factor. Yeah. Can we just take a moment in meditation first as I'm just coming in? Is that okay? Can I ask everyone to join me in a moment's meditation?
Hilal hocam ne oldu? Ara mı verildi? Ses mi yok?
Thank you. Om Shanti, everyone. On this side of the world, it's still the morning, so good morning, and no doubt afternoon, evening in other parts of the globe. I've switched to where I can see at least some of you who have your cameras on. And when I was given this topic, carefreeness, it instantly resonated because I like to think of myself as being relatively carefree, not that state yet of Daddy Janki, the carefree emperor. And I was wondering about to whom am I speaking today? And although there's an audience, diverse no doubt, and from different parts of the world and different life's experiences, and ultimately, I may just be speaking to myself, right? And that's what they say. Sometimes we speak loud enough so that others can hear, but mostly we're speaking to ourselves. And so a great quantity of words And I just wanted to consider for a moment that to be carefree at one level is a luxury, because many souls, many people are experiencing profound trauma or have recently been in that experience, have suffered maybe the loss of a loved one, have had to deal with a life-threatening accident or illness, and to assume that there's one size that fits all, and that you can go from those traumatic, dramatic states to being carefree, I don't think is quite in the realm of reality. And so I'm acknowledging those who may have joined, who may be in those deep states of distress, and that it's not an easy thing. It is possible, but great healing and other kinds of resolution, I think, are needed first. But always there is automatically help when the intention is such. But any more than you would feed someone who is starving a banquet, you know, all they can manage at that point is perhaps a crust. And that's enough. And then gradually the system builds up to where they can eat without having to think about quantity or how it will affect their compromised system. And so perhaps I'm speaking to souls who have been on a spiritual path for some time, and yet will take themselves to task because they do worry, they do get irritated, they do get disappointed, all of these things, which will, of course, compromise their ability to be carefree. And so when we think of carefree, it's not so much about that I'm carrying a lot of problems and obstacles and difficulties. You know, we say that, you know, just this idea of not having any cares, but mostly it comes down to worries. And so you may have problems, you may have situations, they do come, they will come, but we all sort of have the perception at some level that it's not so much about the situation or the people or the responsibilities that I'm carrying, but it's how I relate to them. It is solely that which will dictate whether I'm carefree or burdened by cares. Now, when you think carefree, you know, when you hear the word, every word is potent, every word comes with a charge, and mostly that charge is connected to the emotions. And so when you think carefree, I'm almost sure that if I were to ask 20 of you here, what is your image of carefree? I feel that you would say a child. Is that right? Yeah, a child. And of course, going back hopefully to your own childhood or your own children. And what do we see? This little person that is up for adventure, that is into exploration, is not inhibited or bound by any imposed societal rules or regulations, is very easy in the company of others. And when it comes to playing, is very happy to role play. Today I'll be a doctor, tomorrow I'll be a mom and take care of my dolls or whatever else. That they can easily go from one thing to the other. Or have you ever seen two little kids and they might even have a little squabble, you know, but what's more important to them is the fun and the playing. And so after the tears have gone, they're without any big signs of apologies or anything else. They get to the
Büyük bir
point, which is playing together.
işaret olabilir. Onu şaire verirler.
And so that
Ve
for me,
dolayısıyla bu nokta
somebody's translation
benim
is coming
için.
through.
Birisinin şimdi geldi, tamam.
All right, sister. Yeah, there's some technical issues.
Okay, so yeah, that would be the image. And of course, what the child doesn't have that gets us in trouble, the child doesn't have a history. You know, it's only 5 years old, 8 years old, so there's no perceptible history. It has not had the experiences yet, perhaps, that just because someone says something, that it's true. They haven't dealt with being lied to. We're talking about ideal, relatively ideal childhoods. They haven't dealt with being lied to. They've been protected. They have a secure place when they finish play. Maybe they're feeling hungry. They automatically go home to a parent or parents and family. Whereas when we get older, we've had more experiences, we have seen the contradictions, we have lived perhaps the deceit and the disrespect and the lack of value and not being seen. And so then we take on another garb. We attempt to protect ourselves. We hide ourselves. We're careful about what we say because it could get us in trouble if I really say what I mean or if I reveal who I really am. And so then there's this contradiction between what is real and what isn't. And so all of these inhibit that which was very natural to the child, that ability to be natural and to be carefree. And so how then do I reverse that? And maybe in some ways, even elderly people, you know, assuming that their basic needs are being taken care of, that they're being looked after as they age, that they also have learned, having traversed all of the challenges that life is going to offer, you know, from when you're a child through your teenage years to your maturity and raising a family or whatever it is that you've decided to do. And then it's kind of like, because then once there's a family, now you're worried about them. Now you're worried about the kids. And I was remembering, you know, when I was growing up, that not only would I have been innocent, as were my brothers, but my parents also were innocent. In that the idea, they wouldn't even have known the word predator. It wouldn't have been in their lexicon at all. You know, so there was a certain innocence. As you go back in time, there was more innocence. And so here we are now, having lived a life. And I think that even with the most basic spirituality or religion or self-awareness, your worries decrease. In other words, things that you would get excited about, when you wore a younger man's clothes, so to speak, that now it's just ho-hum, it's no big deal. And, you know, I'm remembering back when I was living with Daddy in London, and I remember someone becoming mentally unwell. And this was a young person, I mean, same age as me, I was in my 20s. And I couldn't quite fathom how Daddy Janky was so blasé about the whole thing. And you will recognize this attitude sometimes in your own self, because you've gotten disturbed about something, you think everybody else should be disturbed about it too. But she was looking at it through different eyes, you know, and she at that time, Daddy would have been in her 60s, still younger than what I am now. But of course, she'd seen it all before. And Daddy's working would have been directly with the soul, whereas my perception or observation was to do with the person's mind. Oh, they're mentally not well. She wasn't seeing it like that. She could see beyond the limitations of what the mind, the games of the mind at that moment. And I even remember later on when a person who was mentally unwell, and we couldn't find them. We didn't know where they were. And finally we found the person, and they were in Daddy's bedroom. Daddy was asleep, and the person was sitting in a yogi position in the corner. And of course we were like, oh, get him out of there, get him out of there. And Daddy woke up, and Daddy said, leave him, leave him. This is the only place he can get peace. And so that was a wonderful lesson for all of us who were really juveniles at that time in terms of our spiritual journey. And so that she wasn't dealing with what seemed to us, because we were only looking at the superficiality of the thing and from our own limitations and, you know, through our own glasses, whereas she was taking the totality into consideration. And I can't begin to tell you how magnificent that soul is today, and the service that that soul does, and the example that that soul is for everyone who comes into their arena. And so this is something I think that we need to be very careful about is, and again, I was seeing the other day where someone was trying to induce me into taking a side in a situation. And ultimately, and they were getting very upset about it, and there was feelings of injustice and so on. And then they thought that maybe I wasn't equally upset because I didn't want people to think I was no longer their friend. And that really wasn't the truth of the matter. And this is something that you need to be very aware of when it comes to this question of carefreeness. And that is that sometimes you care wrongly too much. And so there is a limit to caring, or not if it's the right kind of caring. Daddy's caring, although we weren't seeing any manifestation of it, was the right kind of caring. Ours was, you need to do something, you need to do something, you need to do something. It looked like we were caring, but no, where we were coming from was from our own fear and our own hesitation, and not from a solid place where care should really come from. And so I think sometimes there needs to be this balance. And again, when I see people getting overly emotional about things, and it could be small things to do with their family or whatever, and this is the language they will use, you know, it's only because I love you so much. And that's not true. It's because you're overly attached, or again, just like I was saying earlier on, mostly
What
we
about the
talk
beans means?
what? Again, what we're saying is that mostly we talk to ourselves, even while it looks like as if we're talking to other people.
Evet, geliyor.
And,
Duydun mu?
and
Omşarcığım.
so
Can you shut up?
the caring is more about my own self and what would happen to me if I were in that situation. Would anybody look out for me? And so it's a combination of fear and worry and concern about my own self, right? And then, and really truly, what it is also showing, there's always secrets in these things, is that you don't care enough about your own self. You know, could be the wrong kind of caring, but if I care for myself, then the fundamental aspect is respect that will manifest in terms of a kindness and a care that, are we still on? A care that I don't hurt you, I don't harm you. And so when it comes to things like, you know, that I'm complaining, I'm criticizing, I'm comparing, all of these things, that's the external manifestation, but actually it's showing something about the internal dialogue from where that is coming. And so that's something that I think I have to give attention to. And very often what I find is that when that is someone's nature, to always be complaining, to always be criticizing and condemning, it usually means that they have been hurt. That they have been hurt, whether in childhood or somewhere along the line, but have not been able to, say, voice it, admit it, whether to others or to themselves. And so this is how it will appear. This is how it will come out in the put down of others. And in the putting down of others, it's kind of like I'm putting myself up. I'm making out like I'm better than you. I'm superior to you, you know, which of course can never result in being carefree. Because one quality of being carefree in relation to relationships is that you will see everyone else as your equal. And I don't mean you will not acknowledge that they are senior to you, or they're your boss, or they're your parents, no. But you won't need to put anyone down in order to feel, to convince yourself, you know, that you're good, that you're worthwhile. And so it's very interesting how, again, this thing of taking care, because you see sometimes how people will give such care and attention to their external appearance, that they're well groomed and, you know, suited and booted, so to speak, so that they look the part, they present as whatever it is they wish to present as, but they've ignored the internal dialogue, you know, which is when they're not as caring or careful about the conversation that they have inside. And that whole thing of then how that will even bleed through their pretty new suit or their fancy hat or whatever else. Because no matter how well dressed you are, it will not hide your vibration. You know, your vibration will still come through. So then the whole thing about being carefree, more than anything, is to deal with your feelings and your attitude. And something recent from Daddy Janky, my foremost human teacher, is to always, if we're now going to try and resolve this situation, she said to always have an attitude of friendliness, to have an attitude of friendship. And we all knew Daddy had that. How many of you knew Daddy and never heard her say to you, "You're my friend, you're my friend"? We all thought we were her best friend. And so that was her attitude with that equalizing thing. And so when I approach others, and in behind that attitude of friendship, a little bit like the Hippocratic Oath, at least do no harm, that's the feeling that others should get from me, that I don't mean them any harm, and that, you know, that my intentions towards them are good. And then when that's the intention, then those other gripes and complaints and whatever it is can be merged in that attitude of friendliness, you know. And so it's about changing the dialogue. It's about changing your dialogue with yourself. And it's about changing your external language as well. And one of the things for me that's, you know, that your conscience, if you allow it, will come into play here, no? That my conscience will tell me that my feelings and my thinking and what I'm saying about you or against you, my opposition, etc., my conscience will bite, that this isn't quite right. And so part of me in getting to a place of being carefree, that everything has to align with my conscience. In other words, I can't justify my dislike or, God forbid, even something like hatred or my reaction. So that not to compromise your conscience in any of those situations, because it's not going to result in a mind that is satisfied. It's not going to result in being able to sleep well at night, because this little thing will keep eating away at you in a sense. And so the situation ideally of whether I'm the richest or I'm the poorest, that there's that equanimity, because whatever it is that I've been given or gifted with, that I'm using it in the right way. And I'm not just talking about facilities or wealth, but, you know, my mind, my heart, my head. Yes, all of these, I think I saw in the summation of the workshop or whatever, you know, that idea, what was it? It was that I saw written, what was it? Anyway, I just lost my thought for a moment. Yeah, it'll come back, no doubt. But this is the thing that I need. What I have is what I work with. And in that way, going inwards, taking care taking care that what comes out is first vetted, if you like, and is aligned with my spiritual principles, you know. And again, like this idea where sometimes, oh, I'm justifying, because we know by now our nature is peace and is love and is brotherhood and all of that, but where I'm justifying getting angry because you were untrue or you were unfaithful, and it's fine that I get angry, you know. It's really not so. Again, the quality of the yogi is to be neutral, because unless and until then there won't be that clarity about what is going on, and you justify getting caught up in the emotion of the whole thing and not realizing that even though the other may have been wrong, but your anger too is also wrong. And I always use this as a yardstick for where I'm at, spiritually speaking. That yes, there are certain things that we may not like. You know, we like, just by being a yogi, you like cleanliness, you like simplicity, you like quietness, all of those nice things that contribute to the environment and the atmosphere and pure food and so on and so forth. But what do you do? And again, you could say, oh, of all the virtues, the one that's most important to me is honesty. Really? I don't believe you. Especially I will look to see how you handle the opposite in other people. Then honesty is only a value for you because you can't manage, you can't handle dishonesty from others. And so to know whether someone has something as a quality, as a deep sanskar, then a measure of that will be how they deal with the opposite in other people. And instead of justifying that you got upset because they were dishonest and you like honesty, it shows you haven't got honesty as a quality. If you have it as a profound quality and not just as maybe some reaction, then you will be able to, you know, absorb, if you like, or separate that person's dishonesty from who they really are. And in or by so doing, you may even be able to project something of the truth of you that touches the truth of them. You can't give them your truth, but you can touch the truth in them. And so this for me is a good way of checking myself. I wish I could say I always pass. I don't, but it's a good checking point anyway. And so we're learning to be careful, and but careful not that limits us or boxes us in, that you do take care under certain circumstances, but as I say, not so careful that you control everything, you know. That wouldn't be a fun life, you know, but rather, yes, I'm careful. These are the guidelines, but let me, like the child, explore. Let me take myself a little bit further. Let me test myself a little bit more and see where we can go. And let's see, I'm not sure what time we're supposed to finish at, but, you know, this thing of spirituality, and at some level, it is a willingness to have a dialogue with your own self. you know, and the BK teachings provide some guidelines, some tips for you to do that. And, you know, again, it's a little bit like, you know, I've heard the story of Brahma Baba, and his nature was very sweet and very lovely. And that he would sometimes call the child, "Oh, Bachi, come, come, come." And of course they would go running, and then Baba would sweetly pull their ear and say, "You Buddhu, you know, you're silly." And so this is the thing too, that the beauty of the dialogue that we're taught, the internal dialogue that we're taught here, we do not start off with our deficiencies or insufficiencies, but rather the dialogue starts with the remembrance of being a soul that has consciousness, currently living in said body, but that my real nature, not taking into consideration whatever may be going on, whatever are the hats that I'm currently wearing, but that my real nature is peace. And so this entity that is teaching me, remember how as little children, I don't know, depending on your you know, your culture or your religion or whatever, but as a little child, you were taught how to pray. That's what I remember. You were taught how to cross yourself and say, "Our Father." You know, you're taught it at a very early age. And so you could almost say that in learning meditation, that you are being taught almost like an internal prayer, not a chant, but a very meaningful way of seeing yourself as if almost that which is beyond this realm, this dimension, has tapped you on the shoulder and said, "Here, I've got this magic mirror that you can look in. It's a very magical mirror. And when you look, you're not just going to see your own face reflected back at you, but it's almost like an X-ray, and it's going to go inside your face. And what you're going to see is not only that you are a luminous point of light, that you're going to even, this X-ray is such it will take you even into the soul itself, and it'll bypass everything else, all of the experiences that you've ever had in your life or lifetimes, and is going to reveal to you this starting point and paradoxically the end point, the Alpha and the Omega. And that is that you are light, you are love, you are peace, and whatever has happened, you are innocent. I see you as innocent. And I request that you see yourself in the same way. This is the starting point of the dialogue. It is a rich, healthy dialogue that has the potential to change the internal structure and the way of seeing through your windows, that suddenly everything is clear, everything becomes its own true self, its own real self. And it's like as if all the hopes you ever had and that you'd almost given up on, or had even arrived at that point in your life of being cynical about goodness, about anything beyond what you could perceive through your sense organs, all of that is suddenly reinforced. That not just the hope of something to come, but the assurance that I can do this. I can do this. And so then your way of speaking to others, your way of seeing others, your way of seeing situations is altered. And like we would say that, you know, when you're living so much of your life in conflict and conflicted, we would say that's the dialogue of the poor. You know, that's the dialogue of poverty. And so being made aware that I have incomparable wealth, you know, hidden even from my own inner eye until now, that I can look to and choose as I will what to use and how to use it, so that all of that which was fake, that was untrue, that was irrelevant, valueless, again, can easily be discarded. And so in order to be carefree, I think that that is very much part of the necessary plan. And by attempting it, at least, and hopefully adhering to it, then you in a kind of a way can help those other souls who really, you almost say, you have a right to be in distress. I can completely understand that you're devastated, that you're desperate because of the circumstances you find yourself in. And so my becoming carefree will create a vibration which in turn can even help them. Then the caring for and about them, it is from the right perspective. And so again, not to be so carefree that I'm dismissive of the pain of others, but to be very, very respectful, because, you know, not all of us reach a certain age at the same time. Not all of us mature at the same time. Everybody's at different chapters in the book. And so that each step that you take towards the concluding chapter, if you like, whether in terms of your own life or eternity or whatever, that you are contributing to. I was seeing, you know, someone who most of you know as well, maybe I shouldn't take names, but just seeing them over this last couple of years and the magnificence in terms of their evolvement, even though I only knew them as evolved to begin with 40 odd years ago. But now what I very clearly see, that not only by that soul elevating herself, it's like, you know how when the tide rises, then all the boats rise. And so that they create a wake behind them that lifts everybody else's boats. And this is what I'm seeing. And so I know I'm being lifted, as I was when I lived with Daddy, and even until Daddy left the body. But now each of us has to do the same thing, you know. And so when you look at the things in the world, you really don't have a good enough excuse to be anything other than carefree. And there was an experiment done, which I'm sure many of you would have known of. And it's an awful long time ago now. I'm sure there's a better one, better example, but where a group of probably students, college students, were asked to write up a list of their cares and worries and woes and difficulties, etc. And so they did, and assume there was 20, 25 students. Then all of their lists were projected onto a big screen without their names, of course, but here's A, B, C, D, and so on, so on, so on. And there was, of course, variation in each one's thing, but it all resulted in the same worry or concern or unhappiness or sorrow, whatever. And then they were asked, okay, so you see your own list there, and you see 24 other lists. And usually when we're dealing with our own stuff, we think, oh my God, nobody's gone through this before. Nobody's felt the weight like I'm feeling now, this misery. Okay, so out of the other 24, choose the one that you would rather have than your own. I see you smiling because you can guess what happened. Each one chose their own over to a person. Each one chose their own list. And that's part of the secret, that all of these things come, somehow you invited them, and you may not know it at the time, that however problematic they were, that two things, they will result, if you allow it to be so, in some learning or in some achievement or some resilience or some growth. And in your calling those things, because mostly things come into our life, we have some responsibility for having invoked them. But when they come, we want to get rid of them, not remembering that we do have the wherewithal to deal with them. And in accessing that wherewithal and in dealing with them, we graduate, we move forward. And so this is the wonderful game of life. And as I say, when you look at the massive sorrow and the conditions in the world and that individuals find themselves in, and you know, I'm sitting very nicely in a comfortable situation, good people, good everything, then I really, it's a sin for me to say that I'm worried, or I've got cares, or I've got responsibilities. I'm kidding myself. I'm kidding myself. And so again, just back to this thing of a degree of detachment is necessary. A degree of neutrality is necessary. And when I say detachment, it's from your over exaggerated emotional response to situations. You know, tamp it down. It's not reality, that the feelings you're generating are just, you know, it's like, what can we say? Using a machine gun to kill a fly, you know, it's just not warranted. And so that reminder of the inner dialogue, I am peace. And so my life isn't just for my comfort, you know, and it's not that I feel I'm the hero, I'm doing something for anybody else. No, but I'm part of humanity and I have a responsibility towards humanity. And so whatever is my little bit, and it's not going to be through wealth or anything like that, that I contribute. But once again, there's a line from a song that I remember. Anyway, my generation, which was, give just a little bit more, take a little bit less. And so this thing of carefreeness that often it's about when I'm not carefree, there's a degree of self-centeredness there. And so to move out of just satisfying your own little self to doing something a little bit more generous for others, even if it's just at the level of vibrations. So in other words, you know, and ultimately what we receive is to some degree based on what it is that we provide. You know, I think you call it karma in India. Yeah, is based on what we provide. And so discovering, whereas very often when I'm in the mode of criticism and complaining and comparing all the rest, I want to take, I'm poverty stricken. I don't have enough for myself. So I'm trying to get some feeling of my worth or my value from putting you down and disliking you and complaining about you. And so to be aware of the inner treasures, and of course this is what meditation is, this is what the kindness of God is, allowing me that mirror that he provides for me to see not the limited me, not the weaker me, but the me that I really would like to be, and that is more like him. And he doesn't just give me the mirror, but he gives me the comb and the whatever else is needed, you know, to bring that into reality. I hope it's helpful.
Oh yeah, it is indeed. Thank you so much. And I loved your concept when you mentioned that sometimes when we are carefree, we sometimes are careless. So let us be careful about other things as well. As you rightly mentioned, quite a few things. I'll just take two questions in the interest of time, a couple of them. So first question is, a brother is saying, I feel very peaceful and carefree when I'm doing prayer. I remember God when I remember God. So why do I really need to meditate to become carefree? Is it necessary?
Well, the whole thing of the remembrance of God, I mean, it sounds like just a bland statement, but it really is about a relationship. It is about connecting an old relationship that is I the soul with the Supreme Soul. And then the idea is that it's not just when I'm in prayer or when I'm in meditation or doing my, you know, worship that I feel peaceful, you know. And it's one of the things that I have to say drew me to the Brahma Kumaris. Many of the things that drew me were the things that were different here. And I knew for me that prayer had finished. As I say, we're all on different chapters. I knew that prayer had finished and I was looking for silence. I was looking for stillness. And when they taught meditation with your eyes open, that was unique. And when they said that meditation is not an end in itself, it's the means to an end. It's about having yoga with the Supreme. And it is, as I say, forming a relationship, getting to know God and be known by God. And then that the meditation is, because is thinking, right? Is thinking, but that's continuous throughout the day. Just like if you have a partner, a spouse, a beloved child, you don't forget them. You don't sit down to remember them explicitly. And so the idea of meditation is that it's a continual thing. And for me, it wasn't just about being peaceful in those moments. It was about honesty. I didn't know what honesty was. I thought I did. Truth Okay, that's an even bigger concept. But to be able to be honest with your own self is not an easy thing. And don't expect that the people around you are going to help you in that. They may not. But it's this thing of the willingness to explore what's inside of your own self, but always with your hand in the hand of that one who's protecting you. And it's almost like as if you're getting a message. Okay, you didn't know that you were, what can I say? Give me a vice. You didn't know that you had anger, for instance. There was no external manifestation. You didn't know that you had jealousy or envy. And with that one holding your hand, it's almost like as if you get to a certain point of accumulation in terms of your spiritual growth, that you get a sign that says, now you can reveal this to yourself, that you are an angry person, that you are a bad-tempered person, that you're a jealous person, that you're a violent person. You never admitted it, you never saw it, but you are not confronted with that, not until you have the power through yoga, through meditation, and it's an accumulation to be able to deal with that, to be able to see it. Mostly, we don't have the strength to look at our own weaknesses. We negate them, we avoid them, and we blame the other person for having them, but we don't see it in ourselves. That's a bit long-winded, I know, but that for me is one of the differences in meditation. It's like the child, it's an exploration, it's an adventure, it's a journey, yeah.
Fantastic. So it's self-analysis, which we do in meditation. Great. And
Yeah.
another, yeah, I'll just take this. I think it's okay if we exceed a bit, 5 minutes more. I hope you have time, Sister Waddy.
Not much, because I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be on a retreat actually,
Okay,
which is,
fine. So
yeah.
we'll just take the last question in the interest of time. The sister is saying that I feel stressed. I can't be carefree when people start expecting from me. So
Oh,
how do I deal with these expectations of people? Yeah.
uh, what has happened in a sense is that sometimes we're guilty of setting people up to have those expectations. In other words, if you know, you're always on time, you know, Deb arrives at the door every morning at 6 o'clock. And so this morning, I have something that I need doing at 6 o'clock in the morning. And so I know he's going to be there, and he can take care of it when he arrives. But Devbai doesn't show. Now I get what? Upset. He trained me. He trained me to expect him at 6 o'clock. So do I blame him or do I blame me? And so see in your life how you have trained people to have these expectations from you. You know, somebody else who's very nonchalant and careless, they might arrive at this time, they might arrive at that time. So I don't have any expectation from them because I know it won't be fulfilled. And so in some things, you need to backtrack so that they don't blame them for having expectations from you. You set them up, quite possibly, to have those expectations. And then what you have to do is you have to change something in your own self. And sometimes you have to have the courage to smile and say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do it, and mean it. That's all. And people, you can train them again. They might be disappointed for a moment. And so it's just a reversal of roles and expectations and what have you. Do you really want to make yourself free? Then you have to take the bull by the horn, so to speak. And so it's not about criticizing them or telling them they're wrong. Just, sorry, I can't do it right now. And mean it. That's it. And don't feel guilty, because very often that's one of the things that does contribute, as you say, to our not being carefree. Guilt kicks in, my conscience bites or whatever. But sometimes, your conscience is misguided in that you're taking the responsibility for something which is somebody else's responsibility. You might have the nature of always feeling guilty. And I've seen this. I remember someone I lived with for a while, and it was like if you said, oh, who spilled the milk on the floor? They would almost, even though they were nowhere near the kitchen, they would say, oh, sorry. They just had the nature of feeling guilty and of taking that burden on themselves. Do you know people like that? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
hope that
fantastic.
helps.
Yeah, so when we point a finger, three fingers are pointing towards the self. We need to look at that. Yes, thank you. So with this, I would now request Claudia's sister to propose the vote of thanks. Over to Claudia's sister. Yeah.
Thank you so much, brother. Hello, Claudia. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. It's very nice to see you talk about Carefree. And I quite like the point that you said that more we give to the other ones, more carefree we get, but of course with care too.
With care too, for the right reason. Yeah.
That otherwise happen at what you said. You start
Yeah.
getting expectation.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
But then we also the load on our shoulders gets smaller.
Yeah.
And then we can do other things actually. We can do that.
Yes, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we feel free to do more. Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing all your wisdom about Carefree, because you are a carefree one. I know. So thank you very much for being with us.
Pleasure. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Thank you so much. I know the time is up, but I'll just take a few more minutes of yours, just 5 more minutes. And actually, many people are requesting they wanted to have a group photograph. But during the meditation,
lovely.
people tend to just skip off. So I think we can do that right now and then go into the meditation.
Thank you.
mode.
Please put on your cameras. I'll take a picture as well.
Now they'll put on the cameras. I'm sure they will. Okay. Yeah. So Anu sister, over to you. Yeah, if you want to click it. Yeah.
I'm clicking it.
Yes, fantastic. We'll give them a bit of time. They are opening up. Good. Okay.
Please open up your videos. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Seeing some old friends there.
Right. Okay, done. So I'll just quickly share the screen. I'll just take exactly 1.5 minutes more, and then we'll go the drishti with and meditation with Sister Waddy. So quickly to let you all know that we have the silence retreat coming up in the next 12 hours, where we experience the beauty of silence, go within on that value. We had faith last time, so we are doing the silence retreat on faith. The West Coast will be joining at 8 p.m. their time, and we have 8:30 in the morning. The next value coming up is Strength by Dr. Nirmala Didi, one of the most seniors of our organization, and she's really an embodiment of a lot of strength. So we'll listen to her sharings next weekend. And as usual, we have the workshop followed by that after that. So it will be this time we have a new speaker, again the national coordinator of Brahma Kumaris in Portugal, Sister Mara Gomes. So I'm sure you would also want to attend the workshop as we are doing today. And I'll just stop here because I think we have exceeded our time. So without much ado, I would just request Sister Waddy to take us into the meditation mode. Do you want some soft music, or
Do you want me to do a commentary or just
whatever you are comfortable with?
Okay,
that's
okay,
fine.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. The invitation of course, is to relax, to unburden oneself, to move into another uncluttered dimension, a place of light, limitless space, ethereal, floating free, even from the identity that I call me, and seeing in a bigger frame eternity itself, and I, a participant, a contributor, a reflection of the light and the love and the wisdom that is my supreme parent. Nothing else exists. I, in peace, am peace, radiate peace. There is only lightness, easiness, freedom. I am home. Om Shanti. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have
Thank
a carefree rest of your life as well as today.
you.
Om
Thanks a lot.
Shanti.
Thank you. Om Shanti.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.